your attitude is bad towards them, you are insulting them, and you are telling them that you have to do this and you have to do that, and if you're not following Britishers, then they will give you punishment in return. Second point is corruption in administration. Obviously, there were corrupted people who were part of administration. The major reason that why there was corruption in administration was because they wanted to prove themselves dominant, and if they find anyone who is misleading others, then definitely they will send that person into prison. So as a conspirational point of view, you can say that corruption was present in administration. Not everyone was treated equally. Indians were more dominant as compared to Muslims over there. Third point, Britishers introduced their culture and disrespected the Indian culture. The major reason why the Indian culture was disrespected was because they wanted everyone to follow British culture, including Indians and Muslims as well. This was the main reason that they disrespected others' culture. Now, another point is Britishers thought that Indians were uneducated and uncivilized people. Why did they thought that thing? Because once when they started their business of spices in the subcontinent, and when they came across over there, when they started meeting people, then finally they came to know about they're not well civilized and they're uneducated. Due to this reason, they have introduced their British educational system in the subcontinent, so that they should learn over there and then they can join, for example, politics, for example, government. They can join different domains after getting education from the British educational system. Now, the last point is the landlords were denied the right to adopt the land. Yes, this is something which is very important. Landlords were actually not having that authority that they can own the land. The lands were under Britishers, and the landlords were under the influence of Britishers. So you can only purchase the land, and for example, the tenant is paying the rent to landlorder, and then the landlorder is paying in terms of taxation to the Britishers. This is how the system worked over there. Now let's move forward. When I talk about economic causes of the war, then here I am talking about that how the war happened and how much money was included into that war and how did it started. The first point is oppression of poor people. Obviously, poor people was not they were not wealthy, so they were earning on daily wage. Due to this reason, they were suffering a lot. Second point is corruption in administration, which I've already highlighted you in the social perspective as well. That why there was corruption, because there were not enough amount of money present over there to feed their families. So this is the main reason they used to do corruption in administration so that they could feed their families. Now the third point is mishandle the feminists in India. Obviously, they were mishandled due to corruption, due to poverty. The major reason was poverty. Due to this reason, it was mishandled. The fourth point is drain of wealth, transfer of Indian revenue to England. Yes, whatever they were earning, they were giving taxations to the British government, and British government was transferring that money to England. British government was not spending that money on the people of the subcontinent. Discourage loyal cottage and handicraft industries. They were discouraged because um, they were actually transformed with heavy machineries and with the industrialization process. Due to this thing was discouraged because they were not getting enough amount from all these things. That's why they shifted to industrial revolution. Now when I talk about the last point, introduce the British goods in local markets, the major reason was they wanted to generate revenue, and they wanted to transfer that revenue to England. They don't wanted to share that revenue with the people of subcontinent. This is the main reason that they were introducing their goods into the local market so that people should purchase those goods and then they should transfer the money to England. Now, when I talk about the military causes of the war, as you can see over here as well, military causes ill treatment of Indian soldiers. Indian soldiers were not treated in a very good way. They were always insulted by the British soldiers. Lower salaries of Indian sepoys soldiers. They were not even paid enough amount as compared to the British soldiers. Less chances of promotions of Indian soldiers. The major reason why they were not promoted to higher designations was because if they will be promoted to higher designations, then the British rule can shake. Due to this reason, they were not promoted. Fourth point is introduction of greased cartridges in army, greased with cow and pig fat. Now, these terminologies which I have used over here, if I talk about cow, so obviously Indians won't accept that thing. If I talk about pig fat, so obviously Muslims won't accept that thing according to this religious rituals. So the cartridges, it means the weapons which were used over there, it was filled with these cartridges. So this is the main reason both of the militaries were not using these weapons. Indian soldiers refused to use the grease cartridges. I've already told you the reason that why did they refuse to do that. So all right, now let's move towards another slide. When I talk about religious causes of the war, as you can see over here, the promotion of Christianity was on hype. The major reason why did they wanted Indians to convert into Christianity was uh, because they wanted to rule them forever. Due to this reason, they wanted them to be converted. The second point is impose Christianity forcibly on the Indians. Yes, this is absolutely right. It was imposed forcibly to adopt it by the people of subcontinent. Interference in religious matters, rituals of the Indians. Why did they used to interfere into all of those matters? Because they always wanted to be dominant upon them. Converting local people to the Christianity, I've already told the reason why did they wanted this thing to happen. Established churches and missionary schools. They established it so that they should adopt their culture, they should adopt their teachings, they should adopt their preachings as well. War of Independence 1857 impact. When I talk about the impact of War of Independence, the first point is it was an extreme effort made by the Indians, but they failed due to certain reasons, including mutual jealousness, disunity, and lack of central leadership, etc. When they were struggling for another or a separate state, so there was not unity present among Indians and Muslims. There were reason of jealousness between all of them. Indians were jealous by Muslims, and there were disunity. There was lack of mutual understanding between them. Due to this reason, they failed in the first half of War of Independence. The second time, when first they tried to attempt for an independence, the first time they failed to do so due to all of these reasons. Now, the second reason is British ended the Mughal rule. Last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon. He was exiled. Exile means he was into the prison by he was put into prison by the Britishers. And exile basically means that you have fought a war, but when you have not when you didn't um, succeeded into the war, then the opposite party, it keeps you in exile. So it actually means that. The third point, British government abolished the Indian East Indian Company. The major reason why the company was abolished means completely ended. So why the company was abolished? Because they wanted to introduce their own government, they wanted to introduce their own system, should be adopted by the Muslims and the Indians of subcontinent. That's why. Now, when I talk about the impact, the first point which comes over here is rise of nationalism in Indians. Indians nationalism means you have to follow one policy, you have to follow one leader. Whatever the leader says, you have to follow that thing. So there was a rise of nationalism in Indians. They were supporting their leaders in this regards. The second point is British started divide and rule policy because Indians were following their own leader. Due to this reason, British started divide and rule policy that you have to follow Britishers. If you will not follow Britishers and their rules, then automatically the state will be divided. Widening gulf between Hindus and Muslims imposed heavy taxes on Indians. But in first half, you cannot say that Britishers agreed that subcontinent should be divided. Britishers made so many conspiracies so that Indians and Muslims should come under their influence. How? They increased taxations on Indian and Muslims, and afterwards, after the end of war, official British rule was started, which lasted August 1947 in India. Pakistan got independence on 14th August 1947, and then afterwards, British rule just ended in the subcontinent as well. Now, When I talk about all of these things, then I hope that all of these concepts which I try to explain you is much more clearer in this regard. Otherwise, the link which is given over there of the video, if you watch that, so definitely the rest remaining concepts will be clear as well. So here is the assignment for you. You have to attempt all of these questions, but before attempting, you have to copy the link, you have to paste it in another Google Chrome tab, you have to attempt the MCQs, all the MCQs should be attempted, and then you have to submit the answer. And first, you cannot submit, for example, if you are attempting two MCQs and submitting the answer, it will affect on your progress on your report card, all right? And then you have to do all these question answers in your notebook, where I'll post instructions on KP. Under my instructions, you have to take a picture of your work and then you have to post it over there, first thing. And the second thing is you also have to copy these MCQs into your notebook as well. It will really help you in your papers. So thank you so much. I hope that you really like this presentation, and I hope that this thing was very informative for all of you and all the concepts are clear. Inshallah, we'll meet all of you with another presentation. Till then, take care everyone. Good luck and barakallah.